Okay, so the functional regulation, this term comes up again. And this can be met by undertaking the geotechnical investigation and then having the design done in accordance with that structural design criteria. So the functional requirement says the foundations must be built to withstand the loads. They mustn't crack more than a certain recognized amount. They have to be able to withstand all the other criteria. Well, if there's a geotechnical investigation and the thing is designed by an engineer, no problem. So you would make that declaration, somebody else takes that responsibility. Otherwise, if it's not done, it's assumed that you are taking the responsibility, and how are you going to do that? Right, there's quite a few annexures in the foundation section. First of all, Annexure A is typical to all the other parts. National building regulations are there. The B is the design of foundations for single and double-story domestic dwellings, slightly different to doing commercial buildings and others with higher loads and potentially different numbers of levels. The Annexure C is the geotechnical and structural solutions associated with masonry buildings and how you have to assess those, mostly for the engineers. Annexure D is the protection of the single-story Type 1 masonry buildings against damage to ground movements, stopping them from cracking, and other things like plants. And the Annexure C, a lot of detail describing different types of trees, distances that you can plant stuff, and showing what the impacts are of tree planting around buildings and access to foundations and tree roots and all the rest of it. So have a look at that, because that's very important. And in terms of landscaping plans, it's something that can also be asked for. The minimum widths of foundations, I'm noting, have changed. In the past, I was always used to a standard foundation, whether it was an internal wall, external wall, always being a minimum of around about 250 thick and about 600 wide or 700 wide, because it was 3 times the width of the wall that the thing was going to sit on. Well, that's actually changed. Somebody's realized that depending on the soil conditions, because now you've actually tested it, the old foundation was presumably there because, well, you don't know what you're building on, so just put the damn thing in, use all the concrete you can, and hopefully the thing's going to stand up. Now, because you're going to have done the investigation, you know what the soil conditions are. Under certain circumstances, those foundations now are going to be reduced. So they're no longer the minimum. They're going to be designed for their purpose. So it's just a note again that there are some changes. They do give guides with regard to the different standard sizes and spans of the different types of products and their uses. So timber can span over a certain distance. Some further little details depicting the elevations of walls and what you need to show in your elevations. On the right hand side of the picture in the middle, there's 2 elevations there with a dotted line showing where the connection is on that plane, with a wall behind, which in plan just above indicates where that wall intersects with the one in elevation. You now need to show that, because the length that you're allowed before you have a turn, based on the fact that this is now going to be more than 2.4 meters in height, if you're going to take it up as a gable, you have to show what intervention you're going to have to not comply with the 2.4 meter height limitation. It's things you just haven't really had to think about before. It's not rocket science, but it's just a little bit more detail.